What was your best ever year prior to reaching out?
750. Being surrounded by elite billers enabled me to go to that next level. I wasn't even the first person to do $1 million at my last firm. Having the right system in place and the right mindset and knowing what you need to do to get there. I remember when we first spoke, you're like, okay, like, why have you reached out? I was like, because I want to build $1 million. And you said, okay, well, like, how are you going to do that? Work more? Do like more recruitment? Kind of realized that probably already stretching the limits of hours in the day worked. I don't know. Yeah, AI just doesn't really know what good looks like. If you allow a client to engage in an offer process with someone that is unlikely to take it, you might be in the good position of having candidates that they would also be interested in offering. Normally these things drag out. You know, it's quite possible you then lose the candidates that you've got in process. Because if they don't feel like they're the one that the client wants, the longer that time window goes, the less interested they become. If someone does a final interview and doesn't hear anything back for 3 weeks, then they're going to lose interest in the opportunity, regardless of how interested they were.
Welcome to the first live episode of the Performance Zone. My name is Dan Alexander, your host, and today I am joined by a very special guest and a fucking good biller. This is Ben Dale. How you doing, mate?
Very well, mate. How are you?
Excellent. Love to meet you, brother. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, appreciate it.
No worries. So, Ben, 200 placements.
Over that now, but LinkedIn still says that. But yeah, we're closer to 250. But
Over 200 placements. £1 million biller last year.
made it happen.
Come on.
Thanks to your help.
So £1 million biller. You've worked at a Footsie 250 for several years. You've worked at an SME, like a small to medium boutique recruitment business, and having broken the 7-figure mark, decided to venture out on your own now with DW Search.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of the perfect way to have done it. Start, learn the ropes in a FTSE 250 organisation with great training, structure, etc. Take those learnings into somewhere smaller where we helped build essentially set up the UK division from scratch. And yeah, the timing just felt right to do it alone.
Yeah, nice. I think, like, how long have you wanted to have your own thing?
It's one of those things, isn't it? Like, it's always at the back of your mind. I think every recruiter at some point in the pub says that they want to do it, but not seriously really until probably like the last year and a half, I would say. Yeah.
What did you have to walk away from in terms of because look, you are a very 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 prolific biller, and also contract and perm. So you walked away from a pretty big contract book to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Must have been pretty painful, like short term.
Very painful. Yeah, like ultimately the reality is, could have stayed in the same firm earning very good money, and that money's relatively safe due to the contract book that you've got behind you. But I just thought if I don't do it now, then will I ever do it? So it just felt like the right time. And yeah, it's tough walking away from that, but I think you've got to take the short-term pain. It was the same thing when I left the FTSE 250 recruitment company. Exactly the same thing, because you're starting from scratch. Like, yes, you get a bit of a guarantee to help with that, but you don't build up like a 15K weekly GP book in like a couple of months, right? It doesn't happen. So I had to take a step back previously to take a step forward. And the last firm that I joined, being surrounded by, I wasn't even the first person to do $1 million at my last firm, right? So being surrounded by elite billers like enabled me to go to that next level. So I'd already done that in the past, and now it's like a similar thing. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of short-term pain, but long-term, no doubt that it pays off.
And it's mainly buy side, sell side, and like investment banks, like the obviously highest end of finance that you're servicing currently.
Yeah, exactly that. So I mean, clients really anywhere from startup through to the largest investment banks and asset managers in the world. So yeah, we've got a pretty mature client base in that sense.
Excellent, excellent. Well, look, there's some really interesting themes I'd love to dig into, right? Because I think what really set you apart in my eyes, right, is that when I have clients reach out to me, they're usually and typically owners of businesses, and uniquely, you were in employment, right? And I think at the time as well, the firm that you had an internal resource L&D for you to use as well, and you still took it upon yourself to kind of develop your own path, right, and reach out and go, right, okay, that is a pretty unique kind of mindset. Like, where did that come from?
I think, and just to be clear, like the last firm that I was at also had like a great L&D structure in place. But I think there's a difference between training and like having a coach, and that was a very different experience. In terms of where it came from, I knew that kind of last jump to make was going to be difficult. And yes, people had done it like internally within my firm, but I knew that I was going to need help to get there ultimately from people or from someone that had done that in the past. I'd obviously seen a lot of your content, previous podcasts and things like that, which always resonated with me. So I thought, yeah, why not just take the leap?
What was your best ever year prior to reaching out?
750.
The 750, and what did you actually end up doing in that year where it was your best year after?
As in what enabled me to get from 750 to 1 million?
Was it a mil exactly? Like, was it 1.1? What was the actual, like, the number for you?
Literally,
You scraped it.
Scraped it. Yeah,
Love
like
it.
scraped it.
Putting a tenner in my own pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So I mean, look, okay, let's dig into that, right? Because I think you are absolutely bang on. Like, there's a huge difference between training and coaching professionally, in all walks of life, right? And training is typically teaching you how to do something. Coaching is, you know what you're doing, but there are things, and there's something getting in your way, and you can't quite figure it out, right? I think for you, working with you, Ben, like, there were a couple of real key things that made a huge difference for you. What would you say were the key takeaways from our time for you that made the difference in terms of, realistically, an extra 30% on your billings, right, in a year, prior best ever year? It's quite significant. So what were those things for you, would you say?
I think it's like a combination of having the right system in place and the right mindset, and just knowing what you need to do to get there. So I remember when we first spoke, you're like, okay, like, why have you reached out? I was like, because I want to build 1 million, obviously. And you said, okay, well, like, how are you going to do that? Work more, do like more recruitment, and kind of realised that it's probably already stretching the limits of hours in the day worked, and it's not just doing more that's going to allow you to achieve that. You need to make some tweaks to make it happen, and literally breaking down, like, day by day, what I needed to do to get there. Looking at all of the ratios together and basically distilling it down to something as simple as you need to send 2 CVs a day and you'll get it. And I was like, okay, like, that makes so much sense. That's not going to work at the start of your career, right? When you don't know what those 2 CVs need to look like to actually achieve the placement. But when you know, like, you know your ratios already, or from working with you, we worked through that. It was really just as simple as that. And just having that mantra, like, every day and just making sure that I hit it, just simplifying it down. And I'd achieved the numbers that I had without without really having that much of a system in place,
Mm.
and working with you on that to just really like simplify what I was doing was a game changer.
Mm. I think at the beginning, like work harder is the answer to a lot of for a lot of people.
Yeah,
Just to find out what those two CVs do look like, right? You've got to you have to know how to generate that consistency, know what good looks like in your market, and the only way you can do that is realistically through experience and putting the reps in, right? But you're absolutely right. You'll get to a point where you've kind of reached the, let's say, the limits of your kind of natural potential, and then you need something else to go, right, okay, like I'm like you said, working harder isn't the answer now. So what's going to get you there? And I think the interesting thing is as well, like from your perspective, is you've just said that the like I've come full circle on this, right? So when somebody asks me, like, say, Dan, what's the answer? I now give them the answer: systems and people, right? Is you make your systems fucking good, like you make your systems like unbelievable, amazing, and that doesn't necessarily mean more tech, more stuff. Like we were joking about this prior to recording, but I'm a firm believer that in this industry you can outbuild the market with a toaster and the yellow pages if you do it right, if you've got the right mindset, right? So, but having the right system in place, simplifying less data, but knowing exactly how that's presented, knowing what you're looking at, and being able to make sense of that data, I think personally is so key. And that's something you've carried over, right, into your new firm in terms of the way that you recruit is carried over.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. So Tom, my co-founder, and I have obviously worked with you again to
Mm,
just make sure, like a refresher on that system, making
mm,
sure that it's in place. And obviously, the great thing is now like, that's in place from the start. Before, it
yeah.
was changing certain habits, changing certain things on the CRM to make it fit
Mm,
your way of doing things.
mm,
Whereas now it's quite exciting because we've just got that in place from day one.
100%.
Um,
Have you how's Tom adapted to the new way of working?
yeah, good. Good. Working him hard.
Yeah.
Working him hard. Yeah, I mean, Tom was in quite senior roles
Mm,
within recruitment, so he's really enjoying being like much more hands-on again. And I
mm,
think ultimately that's the way that the market is going now. You're seeing, boutique agencies that are popping up where people previously like we're progressing down like the management track, the director track. So all your best people are
mm,
no longer doing the job or in front of
mm,
clients.
mm,
And I think that's shifting.
mm,
Like there's a really really good recruiter in the same space that we worked with back at Hayes, and he's just recently done exactly the same thing. We catch up with him regularly just to like bounce ideas off each other. Um, there's no longer this kind of recruitment's a competitive space,
mm,
but I feel like the good people all want to help each other out. And I think that's a big shift that's happening in the industry. And clients get a better service
mm,
because Tom and I have got 25 years experience recruiting into the finance technology space,
mm,
and we're leading every search.
mm,
We've got help in terms of like the sourcing and delivery, but we are hands on in every single search, which just means you get a better service.
mm,
Because if you go to a massive recruitment company, yeah, the person that maybe you deal with day to day from like as a hiring manager,
mm.
um, they might be fantastic, but if they don't have the delivery behind them, if they're not hands on in the search, then you're not going to get what you want. It doesn't matter how slick the like BD person is that's
Yeah.
speaking to you.
It's funny. I definitely think probably over the last 10 years, the rise of WhatsApp groups, I think, has probably helped help facilitate that. And like, there's a saying that a rising tide raises all boats, right? So if
Hmm.
you can make it better for everyone, then the whole industry lifts. And this kind of scarce mindset where you won't work, like, yeah, you might want to give all your best leads to all your direct competitors, but But you might also, you happily, they'll share with you, you share with them, everyone learns, and typically, yeah, unless you're eating each other's lunches, I think people are typically happy to help.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
never usually that much crossover. Um, so um, so your industry, Ben. So mainly at the moment, um, you're recruiting heavily in the AI space,
Hmm.
right? So I think the two main kind of areas that I'm interested in looking at, just after we finish it's one other question I want to ask you um, on like that mindset piece, right? So talk about systems, and I want to get into just your mindset a little bit, how that's changed. AI in the space that we're in, and AI in the space that your clients are in,
Hmm.
and what you're seeing at the moment. And also, I'd love to know a bit more about your journey as a founder, like starting the business and going down that sort of avenue. So we've talked a little bit about systems, the structure, and how important that is, and having clear data sets and being able to really make sense of what it is you're looking at. Um, how's that translated into your mindset and your language that you use with your candidates and clients these days?
What do you mean, sorry?
So like your um let me ask that in a different way. How has your since how did your mindset change to get from 750, and how did your language change to get from 750 to over a mil in terms of that 30% increase? Because I know that you're we talk like, just to help you out here,
In it, yeah.
the 50-50 balls and
Yeah.
and and the language when you're what you're fighting for. Just um give us a bit
Okay,
more
yeah.
on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love your analogies, by the way. They help me
I'm
out.
known for them.
So yeah, like there's no these are things that you probably know anyway, but
Mm,
just like speaking to you about them and like being able to bounce like each situation off of you,
mm,
like definitely helped. But essentially the point we're like getting at with that is we do far more than just send CVs to our clients, right?
mm,
You're you're managing that process end to end, and your ultimate goal is to save your clients time and deliver an end result ultimately. Um, and yeah, we simplified it earlier by saying about two CVs, right? But that's just from like my mindset perspective, and just make sure that I
mm,
need to do what I need to do each day. But actually managing an individual process from end to end is really important that you understand your candidate's motivations and whether you could be the best candidate in the world, but if you're not going to accept the role, then
mm,
you've just wasted a lot of people's time. And
mm,
we work with a lot of the time people in like front office environments. They don't have time. So we need to save them that. And the way to do that is by making sure that any candidate you put in front of them is, very serious about taking that role. And the way that you position it is quite interesting because I find that either recruiters feel like they don't really have any control over the process, which is just not true. And they'll blame the candidate, they'll blame the client, they'll blame anyone but themselves. You have to take ownership. But then you get some arrogant recruiters that are like, oh, nothing ever drops out. I've never had a dropout in my life. Well, that's just not true. Like, if you're placing like top percentile engineers into top percentile firms,
mm,
they're going to have multiple offers, right? So
mm,
you can't control every single outcome, but you can certainly influence it.
mm,
And the way that you positioned it to me, which I just thought was interesting, is some placements are going to go in no matter what you do, right? That candidate, you put them in front of the client, but they were always going to take it, right?
mm,
Once you made that introduction, that candidate was always going to take that role
mm,
because it was just perfect for them. They might not have like many other processes running concurrently. It was just going to happen. Fine. So that's part of that's like one factor within it. The second one is it was never going to happen. Like that candidate was just never going to take the role. And what you need to do in that scenario is just understand that as early as possible
Mm.
and pull the plug.
Mm.
Ideally, don't send them, right? What do you always say to me? What you don't send is important as what you do send. It seems so obvious, but just like constantly having that in the back of your mind, I think is so important. So yeah, sometimes it's just not going to happen. But then I can't remember exactly what percentage you think this is. I guess it depends. It depends on the desk, right?
I reckon like 30%, 30-40% where, yeah, that it's influenceable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 50-50 header. So that just, that made sense to me, right? So there's some that are 50-50 headers, which you can ultimately influence. And that just really comes down to like understanding the candidate's motivations, playing that back to them. Obvious things like just getting in front of your candidates, making sure that you've got a good relationship with them, making sure that they understand that you have their best interests at heart. Because, sometimes there is an element where their default is they don't trust you. And it's ultimately up to you through how you speak to them, like through your actions within the process, to be like, no, like I'm going to give you my like genuine opinion of the market. And if they trust your opinion on the market, then they're going to trust your opinion if you say that your client offers the best next step for them in terms of their career. And if you are like genuinely 100% honest and transparent throughout, they will take your guidance on that. And yeah, a lot of it is, I know we're about to go into AI in a minute, right? But a lot of it is getting in front of people and having those relationships. Same with clients, right? We will always tell clients to meet the candidates in person, at least at the final stage, because it just gives them a much clearer view of what the opportunity looks like, what the culture feels like, and they can begin to imagine themselves really working at that firm. Which we were forced in COVID, right, to do everything remote, but we don't need to do that anymore. And it's just like, it sounds so basic, but it's just people don't get that right.
You'd never recommend the restaurant you've never eaten at.
No.
So
Exactly.
how can I recommend this candidate if I've never met them? How can I rep the client? How do you know if it's a good fit if you've never been there? Like,
Yeah.
you can't, there's knowing and then there's knowing, right? There's reading a book about having sex and then there's having sex. Like, oh yeah, they're both education, but they're different types of education.
I wouldn't know.
So yeah, it's interesting. And going back to your point there about like the ones that happen, the ones that don't happen, are destined for those paths regardless. I find so I've got a new analogy for you, which I'll let you take. But I call it crashing the car, right? So if I'm gonna leave my house and I'm destined to have a car crash, I want to crash on my road. I don't want to go up the M1 halfway up to Newcastle and then have an accident there, because I'm so much further along and invested in the journey, and it's like, and then you've had an accident, right? So if there's one thing you can do, it's asking those really difficult questions. Like, for instance, if let's say there was a relocation happening for a particular candidate, right? Having to fly from I don't know, London to Wall Street, for instance, and that person had a family, and they hadn't properly had that conversation yet with their family around like, okay, well, where are we going to live? Like, are they invested in it? Like, the reason that candidate doesn't take the job can't be because at the final stage, we don't want to move. Because I knew that before setting off on the journey, right? I knew there was a relocation there, and yeah, it's getting real and the rest of it. And I'm not sure what the offer looks like. I wouldn't put someone to final if you hadn't had that conversation and you were like, right, because if you get an offer, the reason you reject it cannot be because you have to move.
Yeah.
Because you knew that up front.
Yeah, make
So
that decision first. It's similar with counter offers, right? It's like you bring that up early in the process, and you need to be clear that they're motivated to leave that current role and have already made ultimately that decision, as presuming that everything else checks out through the process, which is ultimately on you to ensure. But yeah, you can't just decide at the end that you're going to stay in your current firm when you knew what the offerings were before. And I think as a recruiter, it's just a case of, and look, it can happen, but it's your job to make sure that it happens as few times as possible, and that you're asking, as you said, like the difficult questions
People don't.
up front.
They'll cling on to the deals that are going to happen, and they'll nurse them through when they're going to happen anyway, and they'll milk it, and then they'll pretend like those deals are going to happen. And the ones that are influenceable, they won't be in like the time that you'd spend on both those parties, on the people that can be influenced. Like that's the big mistake people are making.
Yeah,
right.
or just like find someone else that is good and motivated.
100%.
And yeah, your time is far better spent on that than trying. And also, like, it just disappoints people, right, at the end, and then it makes it like a good example, right, is if you allow a client to engage in an offer process with someone that is unlikely to take it, you might be in the good position of having candidates that they would also be interested in offering. But normally these things drag out, right? There's back and forths. And, it's quite possible you then lose the candidates that you've got in process. Because if they don't feel like they're the one that the client wants, the longer that time window goes, the less interested they become. It's not just a case of, they've found something else. If someone does a final interview and doesn't hear anything back for 3 weeks, then they're going to lose interest in the opportunity, regardless of how interested they were before. So when you're at that stage, it's a delicate balance. And candidates often will allow themselves to get into the final stages of a process, because for them it's not that big a deal, right? Like, worst case, they get a better offer put in front of them that they can leverage elsewhere. It's not something I would personally do, but people do that, right?
Yeah.
I know recruiters are supposed to be like the worst people on earth, and incredibly money motivated, but like it does happen, right? And if that is the case, as a recruiter, you just need to be able to get ahead of that early. Otherwise, you're just wasting a lot of time.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and so I think that for me, right, and obviously there will be nuggets people could take from this, but it's obviously not the same as going through a process and going, right, okay, let's get into the weeds of your specific systems, your specific process. So, like, I know a lot of it sounds simple.
I spent
a
lot of money on your on your coaching
you
for that.
paid for it after the first hour, didn't you?
Yeah, true.
Generated a candidate after like an hour of the first session that paid for the whole thing.
Yeah, true. Doesn't want to give it away though.
Yeah. So, and also I want to give you not just pay for the session, I want to give you an actual return on the money, like 10x. So hopefully 300 grand or 250 grand increase is a pretty good increase. 100x the investment.
Boom.
Come on. So AI. Are we doomed?
What's that? I'm quite positive, to be honest with you. I think it's really easy to go down like a rabbit hole on LinkedIn and just think the world is about to end. And look, I'm sure it will have an enormous impact on the world, on the economy. But there's people smarter than me that can like talk about that from like a society perspective. But I guess my two perspectives are me as a recruiter and the market that I operate in. Now, for me as a recruiter, AI ultimately can automate as much as possible when it comes to maybe finding candidates, but certainly like the administration, which any big biller is almost always terrible at admin, right? So if it can enable me to do more and enable to have ultimately conversations with clients and candidates, because that's where the value is, then I'm excited about AI. If you're just pushing CVs around and not adding value, then probably you should be worried. And maybe in some markets where there is far more candidates than there is jobs, maybe there's opportunity to automate there. But if you think like a top percentile AI engineer is going to be interviewed, like reached out to by AI and interviewed by AI, you'd like, it's just not going to happen, right? It's much more a case of, like someone described it, sorry to keep using football analogies, but much more around like moving to almost like a talent agent within, like for professional footballers, which like these, like automate as much as you can, but the real value add is in engaging candidates. Well, like AI can't do that, right? You engage by really understanding what people in your market want and selling how your client ultimately offers that. I mean, yeah, AI can't do that. I'll give you quite a good example actually. So, of why I don't think that AI is going to get rid of me anytime soon. So, had a client reach out again, like busy front office stakeholders, literally sent me a WhatsApp being like, "I need this, like niche senior engineering role," and literally I'd met with he was actually a previous client of mine at another tier one investment bank. He'd reached out to me 2 weeks before, just said like, "Ben, what's going on? Open to my next move." We met for a coffee, went through what he was looking for. The guy's not on LinkedIn, or like he might be on LinkedIn, but you wouldn't even know what he does from LinkedIn. And for AI to be useful, you need the data there, right? And where do people put data about their jobs? LinkedIn, nowhere else. Like, so the guy doesn't actually exist to AI, really, or certainly not what he does. But we'd met for a coffee 2 weeks earlier. And I knew exactly what we wanted. And I knew that that's exactly what my current client wanted. I literally replied to him just saying, "I've got your guy, CV incoming." Within 2 weeks, the job's filled. Like, this is a senior role. The client knows what he wants. They don't need to spend time interviewing tons of people. It's one CV. I wouldn't always encourage you to send one CV. Like, generally speaking, you probably want like to give a range of options. But just backed myself and backed the candidate. The client hasn't got time to waste. So you met him, offered him, job done.
Sometimes
You
you
can't
do.
do that about AI.
Sometimes you do know, right? Sometimes you just one shot, one
Yeah,
kill.
I knew he would take it.
Yeah.
I knew they would want him. Luckily, they did, because I was like, look really stupid. But you can't AI that.
Need a moment to catch your breath? Ready to go from good to unstoppable? At Bamboo Performance, our one-on-one coaching, exclusive live events, and dynamic online recruitment training platform help recruiters smash every target every time. Visit our website now and discover your highest potential. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think how are you currently using? How are you using AI in your current practice?
Yeah, good question. So things that it's really good at, I would say, is you have your qualification call with the candidate. I just make my notes as usual, which, yeah, like, aren't necessarily as not the notes that I would take on a call whilst I'm trying to engage in a conversation with a candidate are not then immediately ready to submit to a client, right? And AI is just incredible at that. If you feed it the conversation and feed it actually what the client really wants, which is part of the job spec, but it also needs to be your context from the client meeting, right? Or the context that you know about what the client wants. And you feed it all that, and it just spits out like the most perfect candidate summary. Like at first we were going back and forth, and it's like, oh, but do you want it to sound more human? It's like, no, it's just better. it's better at doing that than me. Like, as long as you're giving it the context, it's just so much better. Which is quite a big time save. Like the amount of time used to spend faffing around doing that ultimately. That's quite a big time save. We obviously use it from a sourcing perspective, more of the kind of stuff that's built into LinkedIn, which still feels quite early, like the automated sourcing that's going on in the background. But it's good to have it there. I wouldn't rely on it completely right now. So I would say we're still quite hands-on with sourcing, because I would say the IP in our heads from 25 years doing this market at the moment is better than what the current AI can return to us. What else? Job adverts. Like, again, as long as you're feeding it the correct context, and what the role requires, and equally as importantly, what the role can offer a candidate, it generally writes better job specs than I would. Again, like, needs a bit of prompting to make sure that like it's in your tone, and it like nails the key points, etc. If you just go write a job spec for XYZ, it's going to be terrible. It's going to be generic. It's not going to work. But feed it the right context, and it will give you a really good job description.
That's exactly what I'm finding. It's all about the input. Like, and if the transcript that you're feeding it is poor, or you haven't asked the questions, it can't generate the answers.
Yeah.
So you have to be asking the right questions with the right context.
Another well, similar vein really, job spec, job advert. But what we do a lot now is hiring managers absolutely hate writing job specs. So like, you can like, you used to be able to go like weeks and weeks not starting a search properly just because the hiring like they need it. The need is there. But like, and I'd be the same, right? You're doing your day to day, and this is like a bit further down the priority list. And it's like, yeah, just working on job spec, weeks and weeks and weeks. It's like, now I'm like, forget that. I mean, sometimes we still just get job descriptions come into us, they're done, fine. But we'll basically just do the intake meeting with the client. So they only need 30 minutes to do that. Yeah. And then we use that. And honestly, never has anyone, because I'll send the job description to them after and just go like, hey, just making sure this is aligned with like what you actually want. And again, like, it's almost always bang on. It's better than what they would write if they just had to write it themselves, right? And it's better than what we would. Yeah. And that all they need to do for that is have the 30-minute conversation with us that they would have to have anyway after writing the job description. So and that's quite a big time save for clients, right?
Your prompts are almost like your own personal prompts, like your own IP, right? In terms of what it produces you out.
Yeah.
Because you've had to, like, look, we've all seen the summaries from like Fathom and like GTP from like the meeting, Zoom meetings and whatnot, and it's okay. But with prompting it and just tweaking it to a certain standard, the same transcript can actually give you two different outcomes. One of them is vastly better than the other, and I think that's where the value is in obviously the custom GTPs and all the rest of it, and the prompts and whatnot.
And you have to know, like, from that conversation, you have to know exactly what they are looking for, because there will be, I say it's perfect, like there will definitely be times where you're like, that's not right. But then you just prompt it and it fixes it, right? So you have to know the market, you have to know what you're looking for in order for that to be valuable. And as you say, like, asking the right questions in those meetings to enable that. But then, yeah, we'll just put it in like the format that they want their job descriptions in, which match up with like the HR policies and stuff that they have in place, and just build it into that. And it's almost always, perfect.
Why would you say you've got an advantage over the AI matching? Like, what's it not quite getting right at the moment? Your sourcing
from a sourcing perspective.
Yeah. Because you think like all the things that it can do, would you think like sourcing, writing, messaging. I know that eventually it will get to a point where it's conversational and it can have those conversations.
I think the biggest problem is in our industry, a lot of people will have all the buzzwords, right? And they'd have created their LinkedIn profile, CV, what have you, to look good, but like, and match up to what AI might think is good.
This person's great for the job.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect for the job spec because it's been written for the job spec with AI potentially, and it's quite hard. I don't know. Yeah, AI just doesn't really know what good looks like. necessarily at the moment. Like it will, but often it's things like, yeah, you kind of need to go a layer deeper. And also, like the IP is just knowing the people, right? It's a fairly small market.
Are you seeing more people go underground, like off LinkedIn, and is that becoming more of a thing in your industry?
I think it always has been to an extent. Like a lot, as I said, like with the example earlier, some people might be on there. They don't put anything on there. And that, to be honest, that probably is the biggest point, right? It's like, it's only useful if it has the data. And if people don't put that data on their profile, this might be a bit out there, but often, right, the candidates that have like completely optimized their, LinkedIn and CVs aren't they good? Like, because they're looking all the time, right? We're not looking for the people that are looking all the time. So I think the IP is just knowing the market, like knowing who the good firms are, and as I say, it's like it's only useful if it has the data. So we know that there's certain teams in certain banks, certain hedge funds, whatever, that are better than others, or more suitable for our particular client profile that we're going after, right? And you do that by like networking, speaking to different candidates on the phone, and just knowing the market. You can't. It's quite difficult. Or another good example, right, is I think the biggest thing one of the biggest things in sourcing is identifying. Like, once you've identified there's a trend in a firm, like something is happening that might not be public yet, right? Because redundancies, for example, don't get published until like they've happened, and like by that point you're like too late. The whole market's on it. But if you can find out that redundancies are happening within a particular area of a bank before someone else, and get ahead of that, and then get all of the candidates from there, then you're able to put your clients at the front of the queue. Which again, like you can't, because there's no data there. It's not in the news yet. It's like information. We get so much information from calls with candidates and clients that is just not public, and you need a recruiter there to do that. So I think probably the next step for us is, like, as we grow, is how do we use AI on our own proprietary data to then add value to clients in terms of whether it's reports or really good salary guides, like this type of thing. But yeah, you need to be in the market.
I've always, again, like in terms of simplicity and simplifying it and thinking in like just very simple terms, like I think it's really around three things. I know it's systems and people, but part of those systems, it's the collective of the systems and people and thinking working together. So the collective of that is the data layer, which is like, firstly, is the acquisition of your data, like getting the right data, number one, which it's not just on buying lists or like on LinkedIn, like that's headhunting candidates and asking them questions that no one else has asked them in the last 3 years, right? And then once you've got that data, is then enriching the data that you've got on the system, and the third part is making it searchable so that you can then search and find by that data and like use those proprietary systems, right? And then the next couple of things are probably more human orientated. Like the next one is action, which is partly a system but partly the mindset. And then the influence is like, once I've got a person on the phone, it's then the right lyrics, the right words, the right IP to say to that person to then get the result, right? And I think those three things in total, but that data layer that you talk about there, around your proprietary data, like people say like, oh yeah, since LinkedIn's come, we've all got the same data. Absolute nonsense.
Not true at all.
Because we've all got a CRM. It's like, yeah, but my CRM has been personally coded by me. I've updated my notes, my headhunt notes. I know what that guy's wife's name and what her favorite flavor of ice cream is.
Who's good and who's not.
Who's
right?
good? Yeah, 100%.
That's the value in the list.
100%.
Is knowing who to go to for what. Or who, as we said earlier, what you don't send is important 100%. As what you do send.
And that takes time to learn. It takes time to curate that knowledge. But it's interesting about the I think, look, we've obviously only scratched the surface of this technology in 2026, right? And so forth. And even today's models are probably yesterday's military technology. So who knows what people are actually running, like well, you probably do. Maybe like at the
Yeah, like
forefront in terms of what's actually going on out there. But
yeah, and I think there's there's a ton of opportunity in recruitment. Like I was an ideal situation for us, yeah, is really just to automate as much as possible. So the more we can, like, if we can start to bring in like agent workflows where it's literally we can literally just have the conversations, right, and everything that happens before that point and after that point, in terms of, like, for example, we have to do like like specific cover sheets for certain clients to align with their processes, get them on their portals, etc. Like if we can really use agent workflows to
Streamline that.
automate that, then and we definitely want to do that. I think for now it's like keep things simple, right? And we add that as we go. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that, but that doesn't change the value that the recruiter brings to the conversation. It just doesn't, and I don't see how it can. Whilst there's still candidates that are in demand, that aren't going to want to speak to AI about jobs. Like, I mean, that's who would, like, realistically, okay, you might do it just for like the novelty aspect, like once or twice, right? But if you're really good at what you do, I run my own firm now, right? But I wouldn't have, like, why would I have a conversation with an AI like about a recruitment job when I know my value in that industry? I would go to and did go to. Well, I think that's how we got introduced, wasn't it? Through Dalton.
Oh yeah.
But like when I was looking for a job, like, I just went to him. Like I knew he knew the market. Hey, I'm looking. Here's my numbers. Like, let's see what's out there. I don't see how, no matter how advanced the technology gets, that it replaces recruiters until like there's literally like no jobs and it's doing everything. But then
There'll be some jobs.
it's universal.
I think like, I mean, the dev is an interesting place, right? Because initially it was like learn how to code, like, and that was the skill that like everybody had to have and become a software engineer and learn XYZ. And now, so okay, now learn how to prompt. And now these things can prompt better than we can. And now it's like, okay, so like you've always got to sort of be one step ahead of technology.
Yeah,
but
I still think it goes back to like what we were saying earlier, though. Like, you need to understand what you're looking for the prompt to be useful. So I think like candidates that in my space are leveraging AI. I mean, there's two parts of it, right? Because there's leveraging it for their own productivity. But then there's also the element, which is the space that we're really in now, which is, software engineers building agent systems to automate business process. Like, for example, a lot of the stuff when it comes to like financial research, it's actually literally perfect use case for AI, and you can automate a lot of that. And we're placing the engineers that are building those workflows, and you still need really strong knowledge of the underlying technology to do that. I think the difference is now you also, and it's kind of always been true to an extent, but like these engineers really need to know the business. And this is why you're seeing the emergence of what the buzzword is, forward deployed engineers. I think job postings for forward deployed engineers are up like 800% or something crazy like that. But basically, Palantir might disagree with me on this definition, so please don't hold me to this. But ultimately, the crux of it is, right, you're in front of your user, really understanding what their problems are and building that with them, like in near real time, and getting that feedback. And that requires high caliber engineers that really know the domain that they operate in and are really good communicators, which, like, historically in tech, and this is why a lot of people will say to you that like the market is on its knees right now, and I'll say to you the market is booming right now, is because a lot of engineers previously could get away with earning pretty good money because they could code and is an in-demand skill set. But they might not be the easiest people to work with. They might not really care about like the business value of what they're building, and they could, for like in like the post-COVID era, they could just work at home and do that.
Mm.
That market is on its knees.
Mm.
But clients use us because they want the very best engineers. So this has always been true to an extent in like the type of people that we place. Like a lot of them have always been almost a forward deployed engineer before it was a thing. But that's where the demand is candidates that can basically work with AI, work with the business, and understand the actual value of what they're building. And those guys are in, salaries are going up a lot in that space.
Really, the analogy of being like a sports trader is the best engineers are going to become like the Ronaldos and Messis in their industry.
Yeah.
And they're going to go to certain people that are trusted as their agent specifically, and knowing who, cause people don't know who those people are because it's not like they're in the public domain, right? So they're all behind the shield of they're anonymous, unless they're in their industry, right, and they're known like as specific people. So it's figuring out people don't know who those rock stars are, and B, who when the time is right, who are they actually going to go to actually transact. So I think it was saw a podcast a while back. It was Mike Ames and Dolce were actually talking about a similar subject. Mike to something that was really interesting. He said he believed that the recruitment was going to become like the print industry, right? In the way that when digital came through, obviously print, like, it was like the death of print, right? But there are still printers out there that will print publications, but most stuff is digital, but it's niche. And that's probably true for many jobs, like developers. Like, most things will probably get done by like something to do with the heavy lifting, but you'll need somebody at the top who's that rock star that's doing that niche work. Most recruitment is going to, if all the jobs go, most of the jobs are going to go as well. But for the people, I think it's only the very best recruiters that will survive. And AI is widening the gap as well. It's because it's like an amplification of the person that you've got already. So, because if you've got good prompts and you're able to, it's kind of like automation. If people say to me like, "Oh, should I use automation?" I was like, "Depends. How good are you? Do you want to give your lowest performer a megaphone and blast them out to the market? Maybe not. I don't know." But AI is almost like a different form of that. Sequencing, AI, like automation, like they're all kind of. It all kind of depends on what's the nucleus of the person that it is that you're amplifying, and that's probably going to be true across all different industries. So
yeah, people like will just need to get better. That is ultimately what it is. Because the other, I mean, the more optimistic view as well is that you are automating a lot of jobs that maybe shouldn't really be jobs, and like if you can get like a lot of the time. Like a roadmap of work within a bank or investment manager might not be things that are actually really moving the needle for them. It's just things that they have to do. And if you can remove that backlog of boring things that like no one really wants to do but like need to get done, well, then is that not quite exciting and opens up a whole new world of possibility of what can be achieved, like things that you really want to be doing to drive the business forward. And if you've got the right people in place to do that, I actually think that's quite exciting. So for now, I'm not worried. I'm excited.
Let's see how this ages. Hopefully it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll revisit in a couple of years. But yeah.
So the starting of your business. So DW Search, new kids on the block, obviously 25 years of experience at the helm. Is that right?
Yeah.
Combined, yeah. And you've obviously gone through recently starting the business, setting the business up. What would you say have been the biggest lessons for you as a founder, you and Tom starting the business? Like, what would you say were the things that you'd want to know at the beginning that you know now? And it's not been that long, but what were the biggest lessons that you've learned?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because I'm a bit of a recruitment nerd, so like every like podcast I'm like I've listened to that exists. Hisham's, all the podcasts, right? And they all give you advice that, like, it obviously just makes so much sense. But you almost need to make the mistakes yourself. I think where having like listening to the podcast, things like that in the past, one of the biggest things that I noticed, everyone was like, just don't get like shiny new tool syndrome, right? And like just be demoing loads of different tech products because they're gonna come at you. And that happened. And we spent
Every fucker's got their hand in your pocket.
Yeah, like we just spent way too long just going back and forth on what tech doing all these different demos. And I just had a conversation with Tom where it's just like, I'm not gonna. We just need to make a decision on this, right? And I just don't want to do any more demos of everyone. Like, I just want to do the job. Like, I just need to do the job now. I'm fed up of meeting suppliers, basically. We definitely went too much down that rabbit hole. But what I would say is, having like listened to people who've said exactly the same thing in the past, like just at the start, just focus on your basics. I think sometimes that just helps you catch yourself doing it earlier. So like, yeah, we did go down that rabbit hole and probably spent like too long having those conversations, trialing different bits of tech, etc. But probably just caught ourselves in the act a little bit and was like, no, right, we just need to focus on like...
You still got to hit those 2 CVs a day.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Shiny tools can't help you do that. You need to make the calls. So, yeah, that's one thing. Like, just make a decision. Like, the reality is, like, for example, with your CRM, at the moment, it's hard to make a bad decision, right? Because, they've all got, like, their different marketing, they've all got different trade-offs. But ultimately, they're all compete. As long as you don't go something, like, completely rogue, they're all competing with each other, right? So if one has a certain feature, you can guarantee the other one is building it, and they're all like pushing each other along. As long as you go with like one of the major players. So don't just spend weeks going back and forth on this stuff because it's just not going to move the needle. Like, they all do the job that you need it to do ultimately, right? So yeah, that would be one thing. That's probably the biggest learn so far, to be honest with you. Like, it feels good now to just be over that part, and just now we're just in flow state now. Like, we've got all the tech that we need in place.
The hardest thing with the CRMs is, and I'm hopefully going to have a solution for this in the future, but it's like the time we spent at the beginning just implementing the system, getting it done.
Yeah.
Like that's the hard part, and if you can get that bit done correctly at the beginning, straight away. But some people go years and never do that.
Yeah,
and
spend the time doing that, not on the decision on who you're going to use.
But even then, people don't know what to do, like because they try and put a system in place that's kind of muddied and worked together, but it's not quite. There are some really good people like that. If anyone, he was a guest of the show, Cy Curtis. He's like bullhorn expert. Like, if you were on bullhorn, he's the guy you go to, right? So there are certain people where you think, actually, yeah, there are people, but. I've got a dream that a performance system will be baked into a system. So I'm kind of working on something under the radar that I won't say too much about yet. But
we'll definitely come across it. But the lesson from that is use Dan to whichever system you use Dan to like set it up with you.
Yeah.
Because it's what you put into it that matters the most. I guess another thing as well is just having a network to lean on. Like, I mean, don't try and like set up a business before you've got that, because I do think that that's quite important. Like, just being able to like bounce ideas off you. Like, you've definitely helped us miss out on some probably quite expensive mistakes. For example, like, we were exploring the idea of using like one of these platforms, basically, where they're like taking a percentage of your fees in the background, which, as someone that loves recruitment but hates like the administration side, sounded quite appealing. And don't get me wrong, for the right situation, it probably is. When Tom and I spoke about it, we kind of went, well, maybe if you went solo and didn't have a co-founder, something like that could be good for, well, just to reduce the admin load, because Tom and I can obviously share that. I mean, he'll say that he's doing most of it, which is probably true.
There's always a mum and a dad relationship with the co-founders here.
But yeah, like, I can't remember the point that I was making now.
Yeah, about the platform, about avoiding that mistake.
Yeah, basically, like, you probably saved us a lot of money
Yeah.
doing that, going down that route, which realistically would have been appealing and probably would have helped us get off the ground a little bit quicker. But now we're kind of over that.
The
It's
bar
almost
isn't,
like, thank
the bar
goodness
isn't that
we
high.
didn't.
There's a guy called Stephen Joseph who's just written a book on how to start a recruitment business, like from a top biller's perspective.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and he but the bar is definitely lowering. But the thing is, I think what it is, the reason why less people don't do it is, like, people. Sometimes the people that do it that shouldn't overestimate their abilities.
Yeah.
And overestimate or underestimate that the platform they've been able to sit on and build has been built by somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And the work they've done and put in, and like you start and you've got, like, you've got Excel and nothing. You're like, oh, okay, actually, have I built this? And then suddenly your clients are then loyal to the actual business, and not, it wasn't you, it was actually the relationship with the founder. You're like, okay, actually. So I think
that's why it was good to do like Footsie 250 to SME. Like, I think we needed that step in order to be in the position that we are now. Because I definitely think people can go, they overestimate their input on their billings. And don't get me wrong, like, I was only able to do what I did because, like, ultimately with the help of other people. But I knew what percentage of that was me, and I knew that I could replicate that myself again, and will.
That's good. But people underestimate people underestimate actually how easy it is to start a firm if you do keep it simple and you do keep it basic, and if you don't get shiny tool syndrome and you go, right, okay, what do we really need? A website, a laptop, a phone, and some terms of business and a few documents and whatnot, and really you're away. You know, you don't need that much. You can even bootstrap it. You can get away with Excel in the early days. I still know some very good recruiters that do that, right? So I think the mistake people make is that they are typically like, they get that shiny tool syndrome, or they're looking for a silver bullet, like, and actually the thing you need to do is you just need to get interviews. That's all you just need to do. You've just got to get interviews, and you've got to get going with the job. But no, mate, it's been really good to cheer the fat of you, mate. I really enjoyed it.
Always good talking to you. Yeah.
What's the one? Oh, there've been so many nuggets in this, but what's the one thing you'd like to leave the audience with, like something that's gonna resonate? One message that you would want to know is going to make someone a better biller. It's going to make someone happier in their job, in their career. Like, what's your top bit of advice for someone in this industry?
Should have prepped this one, shouldn't I?
Here's a hand grenade.
Yeah, exactly. I think leverage AI, but stop worrying about it, and just put yourself in the right market where there is demand, and do the basics, meet your clients in person, meet your candidates in person, do the right thing, and just get better at your job. And you hopefully don't have to worry about AI. And even if you do in the long term, I think there's so much opportunity to make so much money in the short term. But at least you don't need to worry about it as much, because you'll have no job, but you'll be rich.
Fair enough. Mate, absolute pleasure to host you. You've been Mendale. I'm Dan Alexander. This is the Performance Zone, and we will see you guys on the next episode. Cheers.
Okay, guys, that is a wrap for this episode. Now it's time to take what you've learned and keep pushing forwards. Remember, Bamboo Performance is here to support you every step of the way. Whether that's through our one-to-one coaching, exclusive live events, or our online training platform. If you're ready, visit our website, and until next time, stay unstoppable. This episode is proudly sponsored by Orca, the online recruitment coaching academy. Get access to live coaching, online courses, and playbooks from the industry's top coaches. Your entire organization can get access for less than the price of one email per day. Sign up today at trainwithorca.com.